Hello and welcome to News Central Studios in Lagos, Nigeria. The headlines for this hour. 24-hour curfew declared in Nigeria's north-central state of Plateau after attack left several dead and many wounded. 6 killed in shootout near French embassy in Tanzania's commercial hub Dar es Salaam. Outbreak of highly contagious H5N1 avian flu confirmed in 2 districts in Benin Republic. Details shortly. For viewers across Africa and the rest of the world, this is News Central's Continental Prime. I'm Sulaiman Aleda. The news begins in South Africa, where suspended ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule is not taking his suspension lying low. Today, the embattled politician approached the High Court for leave to appeal the court's decision to uphold his suspension. Magashule was suspended by the party 3 months ago, owing to pending criminal charges against him in what is known as the step-aside rule. He approached the High Court last month to overturn the decision, but his application was rejected. In today's application to the court, Magashule said the president had applied the step-aside rule selectively. Now, joining me this evening is South African editor and journalist Candice Bailey to unpack the story. Good to see you, Candice. Quickly help us unpack what happened in court today.
Good evening, Suleiman. Indeed, a very interesting day in court. Essentially, what Mr. Magashule's lawyers were arguing is that the judges that presided over his case last month, when he tried to overturn the suspension of the ANC against him, were subjected to judicial bias, and they were basically saying that this court was not apt to make that decision, and that they're now asking for leave to appeal so that the Supreme Court of Appeal can actually review this decision by the High Court today. Obviously, on the other side, the lawyers for Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa and for Ms. Jessie Duarte, who is the Deputy Secretary General in the party, are saying that obviously there's no legal basis to what they are arguing. But definitely at the center of it is the step-aside rule, which says that if somebody is facing criminal charges within the ANC and they're within the rank of the ANC, they need to step down from that position until their charges are cleared. You will know that Mr. Magashule is currently in court in Bloemfontein, where he's facing 74 charges of corruption, along with 15 other accused people.
You know, Candice, this is not the first time he's making that attempt. He did the same last month. He was unsuccessful. So has anything changed?
Indeed, 2 things that have changed since his application last month, Suleiman. One is that President Cyril Ramaphosa went before the State Capture Commission, the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, and the other is that President Cyril Ramaphosa did a reshuffle of his cabinet a little bit earlier this month. And what Mr. Magashule's lawyers are arguing is that particularly the reshuffle shows that President Ramaphosa applies the step-aside rule sporadically. He doesn't apply it fairly across the party. And what they did in court today is that they mentioned the names of several politicians who had been promoted in the ANC and in fact had received cabinet positions, even though they are said to be facing criminal charges.
You know, what does these latest applications say about the state of the ruling party, the ANC, in South Africa?
It really just speaks to the factional battles that that the ANC has been experiencing for a long time, Suleiman, but also speaks to the state of disarray of the party. You know, we are coming up for an election potentially in 2 months' time. In October, we should be having an election that may be suspended up until February next year, but it really speaks to a split in the party and challenges that the party is facing, unity challenges that the party is facing ahead of the elections, which they shouldn't be facing. They should really be presenting a united front going into these elections, trying to secure votes.
a disunited political ruling party, a country going into an election in the next few months, and a Secretary General who is battling to return. What does this mean in the foreseeable future for Mr. Magashule?
Well, for Mr. Magashule, I think he hopes that the court will grant him leave to appeal so that he can go to the Supreme Court of Appeal and then have his suspension overturned. At the moment, a judgment was reserved today, and the court did say that they would make a decision quite speedily and they would then inform the parties of that. If that does happen, obviously he'll be let back into the party's ranks and he can take that forward. But going forward, we have a very tenuous situation. South Africans are looking for accountability. They're looking for, people to take action or to be responsible for their actions. And I think that the ANC really has to make a decision about whether or not they want to, or how they want to be seen in the public domain based on what's happening internally.
Well, Candice Belly, many thanks for your time.
Thanks, Suleiman.
Now let's move to West Africa from the south, where Nigeria's army says it has killed 100 militants in an operation in the southwestern region near the Burkina Faso border. The operation in the Torodi area was in response to an attack that killed 19 security officers who were on a resupply mission on July 31. An explosive device hit another team that later came to the rescue. In a statement, the Nigerian army said that it had aimed to search for and neutralize those responsible for the ambush and bomb attack. It said officers also destroyed ammunition, vehicles, and tricycles belonging to the militants. In the meantime, hundreds of Boko Haram militants attacked a military post in southern Niger overnight, killing 16 soldiers and wounding 9 more. The Defense Ministry on Wednesday says about 50 of the militants were killed in the resulting combat in the country's Difa region, adding that significant quantities of weapons were also recovered. In Nigeria, several persons are feared dead, with many others injured after suspected herders attacked Yelwa Zangam village in the north-central state of Plateau. The attack, which occurred on Tuesday night, also left several houses burnt. Sources say many other casualties are yet to be evacuated from burnt houses. In the meantime, a 24-hour curfew has been imposed on the state capital, Jos. Officials say 10 suspects have been arrested in connection with the latest violence on the city's outskirts. The authorities say the attack appeared carefully planned because a bridge linking the community with Jos City was destroyed before the killings. Now, staying with the security situation in Nigeria, the federal government says its recent intervention to equip better the country's police has started yielding positive results through the Police Intervention Trust Fund. Minister of Police Affairs Mohammed Dinyadi told reporters in the country's capital, Abuja, that the federal government's effort is a testimony of his commitment to reform the country's security sector.
The intervention of Mr. President in the area of police equipment through the Police Trust Fund has started to yield the desired results. A few days ago, I was at the force headquarters for the pre-commissioning inspection of about 200 Buffalo branded vehicles, bulletproof vests, protective helmets, drugs and medical equipment procured by the Police Trust Fund. The Police Trust Fund has also procured arms and ammunition, riot control equipment, and the combat equipment for the police special weapon and tactical squad. Several other intervention projects being embarked upon by the Trust Fund under its 2021 budget will soon be unfolded. The problem of fuel of police operational vehicles will soon become history, as the ministry in its 2021 budget secured about 5 billion naira approval from the federal government for supply of fuel to police commands nationwide. The first round of the supply was concluded about 2 months ago, while the second round will commence before the end of this month. This gesture, aimed at improving operational efficiency of the police, will be carried out on on a quarterly basis. The Ministry recently secured Federal Executive Council approval for specialized police automation project, that is POSA. It is envisaged that in the medium and long-term period, the project will deliver economic benefits and improve efficiency in Nigerian police.
The illegal detention of citizens by some law enforcement agencies beyond the constitutionally stipulated reasonable time can amount to a gross violation of human rights. This is the story of 22-year-old Gloria Okolie, who was arrested and kept in police detention for being friends with a suspected member of the indigenous people of Biafra in Nigeria.
The Nigerian police force has been given a 14-day ultimatum to charge a detained suspected militant spy, Gloria Okolie, to court if she has committed any known offense or release her unconditionally. Police officers of the Intelligence Response Team, IRT, arrested Okolie in Imo State on June 17. She has since been transferred to Abuja despite the efforts of her parents to get her released. Human rights lawyers gave this advice following Okolie's extended and illegal detention by police authorities for over 70 days. She is being held for being friends with alleged members of the proscribed Indigenous People of Biafra, IPOB. The lawyers say such unprofessional conduct cannot be tolerated in the 21st century policing.
Have given Nigerian police a deadline within which to release Gloria, failing which we're enforcing the fundamental human right of that girl. I don't know where she is presently, whether in Owerri or in Abuja, but wherever she is, the police owe the responsibility of charging Gloria if she has committed any crime or release her unconditionally. You can't keep somebody for 70 days in detention, and you're telling us that she is a spy. If she's a spy, so what? So get her prosecuted, which means you have evidence that she's a spy and she has done something that is wrong. Get her prosecuted. Don't ever keep her in an indefinite detention because the law presumes her to be innocent until the contrary is proved.
Our demands are the police should give the family of Gloria Okolie and lawyers access to meet with her and interview her. The police should give the family opportunity to take Glory for medical examination to ascertain her physical and emotional state of health. The police should grant Glory bail, which is a constitutional guaranteed right, having been detained illegally for more than 70 days in police custody.
Whether the police will be willing to adhere to the demands for Gloria's release, which has also generated petitions from the Amnesty International, National Human Rights Commission, and social media outrage, or whether the law enforcement agency will be ready to face fundamental rights litigation, only time will tell.
Now let's go to east of Africa, where Uganda has received 51 people evacuated from Afghanistan on Wednesday after the Taliban swept back into power. Officials said they would temporarily stay until the United States and other nations resettle them. The foreign ministry said the evacuees included men, women and children, adding that they had undergone security screening and COVID-19 quarantine procedures. They're in transit to the United States and other countries. Last week, Uganda said it had agreed to a request from the United States to take in 2,000 Afghans fleeing the country temporarily. In Ethiopia, the federal government has called on all able-bodied of age to join the armed forces as the 9-month conflict in Tigray has spread in recent weeks to 2 neighboring regions in the north of the country. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed made the call, who also declared a unilateral ceasefire less than 2 months ago. News Central's Omolola Ololade has more on this development.
In a bid to stop the Tigray forces from taking over all regions in Ethiopia, some of the country's graduates are currently going through rigorous military training and have taken up arms against rebels in Tigray. Following a mobilization call from the country's Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, to all capable Ethiopians to join the defense forces, special forces and militias in order to show their patriotism. However, the recent move was made by the country as a response to the Tigray People's Liberation Front attacks on federal army camps. Some of the country's leaders emphasized the country's unity and solidarity as a major factor they will capitalize on to win the war.
ተዋጋን ያለው የውጭ አካላትም ጭምር ነው እና አሜሪካን ጨምሮ በውጭ ያሉ ሀገራት ባልተገባ ሁኔታ ይሄን ጦርነት ከኋላ ሆነው ያገዙ እንደሆነ መላ ኢትዮጵያኖች ጠንቅቀን እናውቃለን።
The young recruits also talk about their motivation to join in the country's military as they are eager to fight the war.
የምንኖርበት ቀዬ ህፃናት ጭምር ሳይቀር ትልልቅ አዛውንቶች ጭምር ሳይቀር ከአካባቢያቸው እየተፈናቀሉ ያለበት ሁኔታ ነው ያለው። ስለዚህ እነሱን ስታይ ሳትፈልግ ወደ ጦርነቱ የግድ እንድትገባ ያደርጋል ማለት ነው።
እንድንነሳ ያደረገን ዋናው ነገር አንደኛ የህዝቡ ሰብአዊን መገፈፉ ነው። ማይካድራ የሚጨፈጨፈው ጭፍጨፋ፣ የሰሜን ህዝብ ጭፍጨፋ፣ እንዲሁም ደግሞ ቆቦ አካባቢ ላይ እየተሰራ ያለው አፋር ክልል እየተሰራ ያለው ጭፍጨፋ በጣም ዘግናኝና አንገብጋቢ ስለሆነ ይሄን ጁንታ ማጥፋት አለብን የሚል ስሜት
Although thousands of people have been killed and millions have been displaced as a result of incessant attacks, the country can only hope that there will be no more bloodshed with the recent development. Omolola Ololade reporting for News.
Well, the death toll has risen from the shooting near the French embassy in Tanzania. Police say a gunman killed 3 officers and a private security guard in the economic hub of Dar es Salaam. The unidentified shooter was also neutralized. Head of police operations, Liberatus Sabas, told reporters that the gunman's motive was still not known. 6 other people were also injured in the attack. Now, more than 28,000 people have left their homes, with some 2,000 said to be seeking refuge after heavy gunfire was heard in and around Tambura in South Sudan's western Equatorial State. UN peacekeepers have been on the ground, patrolling the town and surrounding villages, building confidence and engaging with local authorities. Amidst the tension, a UN high-level delegation, including the United Nations Mission Force Commander and the UN Acting Humanitarian Coordinator, visited the area to assess the humanitarian situation caused by the conflict.
The sad thing about this area is that this is an area where traditionally people have lived in coexistence amongst the different peoples and religions. We are now seeing displacement of around 28,000 people throughout the area. And the displaced people are being assisted by the humanitarian community. They're being protected by UNMISS. But what is particularly sad is that this didn't need to happen, and the thing that the people are asking for most, more than humanitarian assistance, is mediation. They want a political solution to this problem.
We will continue with our presence in this area. We are also thinking of increasing our presence. As the civilians here say, they have food in their villages, but they are afraid of going there. We will provide security in areas where people can once at least go back and get the food that they want. We will mediate between the communities, help both the communities get together and resolve the disputes which have arisen so recently. And we hope and pray.
Coming up, Ivory Coast first Ebola patient in years recovers from virus. Details of this and more when we return. Stay with us. Well, if you just joined us, you're watching Continental Prime here on News Central Television, coming to you live from Nigeria's economic capital, Lagos. Now, phase 2 of the COVID-19 vaccination began today in Nigeria's commercial capital, that's Lagos, following over 4 million doses of the Moderna vaccine from the United States. Only about 1% of the population has been fully vaccinated so far. In the meantime, residents, doctors in the country are still on an indefinite strike amid rising cases, exacerbated by the highly contagious Delta variant of the coronavirus. Dr. Yemi Obabire now joins me. He's a resident doctor at the University of Ilorin Teaching Hospital in Nigeria's southwestern state of Kwara. Good to see you, Dr. Yemi. Quickly here, your resident doctors are now 25 days into their indefinite strike. The doctors say their strike continues despite the National Industrial Court ordering the suspension of that action. What do you make of this?
Firstly, I want to say that the from the national was not clear to tell how the strike is suspended. So currently, there is an application from the court to tell us exactly what they want. Since they said things have to find out what they are doing, they are still open to further discussion with the government, and we hope they will do the right.
Has an agreement been reached by your group and the government of Nigeria? Has there been any agreement reached by the union and the government?
However, the Nigerian Red Cross was not a part of that document because it did not meet the minimum requirements that we needed to do for members, especially the fact that our members the fact that they remove our officers from the scheme of service like the ordinary. Even though some other stores signed that agreement, but the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors was not a party.
You know, Nigerians, some Nigerians already have labeled your colleagues as being insensitive because this strike is coming at a time the country and the world is battling a pandemic.
Well, I couldn't understand because the work is very sensitive sector. Health is very, very vital. And there is no on whether it's or not. However, this decision was taken after so many other needs to resolve the appeal. You know, the whole restore as doctor even access to the fact that we need to take care of ourselves first before we the right mind to take care of any other. So, for example, if someone can pay the salary, I'm not talking about extra allowance, salary, monthly salary. They are not got salary for months, up to 7 months in some cases. How do you expect them to provide optimal care? Especially in professions like medicine, where we spend most of our workers look for no chance or in order to spend money. I mean, that is a real challenge now. We must really ourselves. We hope and we pray that so many Nigerians can prevail to attend many of these problems so that we can return back to work as soon as possible.
Dr. Yemi Obabire, many thanks for your time. I do apologize for that poor audio in that conversation with Dr. Obabire. Now, COVID-19 cases in Kenya has increased by more than 1,200, raising the total number of infections recorded so far beyond 232,000. The Health Ministry says the new infections were reported from a sample size of about 10,000 tested in the last 24 hours, with the positivity rate being 12.8%. This is a drop from 13.3% on Tuesday. The ministry says the youngest infected person is a 6-month-old baby, while the oldest is 98 years. During the same period, 36 more deaths were reported, pushing the cumulative fatalities to 4,600. The Nigerian Red Cross Society has called on Nigeria's federal government to support its aid operations. The Red Cross made the call in Abuja as it converged to discuss challenges affecting humanitarian aid workers. The Red Cross also called for more security for aid workers so that they can effectively provide technical and financial assistance to persons in dire need of aid. Correspondent Idong Joseph reports.
With over 800,000 volunteers spread across the 36 states, including the federal capital, the Nigerian Red Cross is one of the largest humanitarian aid agencies in the country. Though the Red Cross is dedicated to reaching out to vulnerable persons in crisis-hit areas, it says its job does not come without its own challenges.
Funding is a challenge not only in Nigeria but in many parts of the globe because of the competing priorities. I mean, if you take now, we have Afghanistan, we have Haiti earthquake, so we have a lot of humanitarian issues that competing for funding.
Many aid workers have been highly demoralized today because the crisis is also affecting them. They are not left behind. Many have been taken captives, many are also killed for doing their humanitarian aid work.
Another element that's very important, and I think that is being a challenge in our road to support the people, is access. We, until today, suffer a lot from accessing those who are in need due to the volatile environment.
With Nigeria currently experiencing several crises as a result of floods, insurgency, and insecurity, millions have been left displaced from their ancestral homes and communities. Experts say urgent steps are needed to improve on the support base of humanitarian agencies in the country so that they can effectively fulfill their mandates.
In dealing with the results of the insecurity, results of other challenges, we know that one of the things that would help us move is both technical support and financial support.
There's no amount that is too small to aid a victim of any calamity, and there's no amount that is too much. So all we are saying, all we need is for governments to continue assisting the Nigerian Red Cross Society and reaching out to those who might have been affected by any of the crisis or any of the calamity that has been falling our people.
With all of these competing international priorities, we should look more at domestic, look at the support, what we can get, not only from the national federal government, but also from the state government, but from the public at large.
We will adapt our activities to the strategic priorities of the Nigerian Red Cross. So depending on the way forward the Nigerian Red Cross is going to take, we will continue to be the partner of the Nigerian Red Cross in Nigeria.
From Abuja, Idong Joseph, News Central Television.
Ivory Coast's first person to test positive for Ebola since 1994 has now recovered. The woman, an 18-year-old from Guinea, had traveled to Abidjan by bus 2 weeks ago and then tested positive for the hemorrhagic disease. Ivory Coast has promptly held a vaccination drive to cover people who may have had contact with a visitor and security forces on the border with Guinea. The woman has now had 2 negative tests, so her isolation has been lifted. Moving away from the coronavirus pandemic as well as the Ebola story, the West African state of Benin has identified an outbreak of the highly contagious H5N1 avian flu in 2 districts near the capital Port Novo. On Wednesday, the Agriculture Ministry said that the cases were detected after laboratory testing conducted last week after recent bird fatalities in southern Seme, Poji and Abome Calavi districts. The ministry says the situation at infected farms is under control and measures are being taken to determine the extent of any spread. Benin is the latest West African country to declare an avian flu outbreak after Ivory Coast identified the disease near its commercial capital Abidjan last week. Still ahead here on the news, the World Food Programme is asking for $222 million to support millions of Afghans in dire need of aid. We'll bring you more on this when we return. Join us again. The UN's World Food Programme requires immediate upfront funds to support the millions of people depending on it to deliver food. The call comes as Afghanistan is in its most excellent hour of need. WFP says it needs to assist 9 million people per month by November. However, WFP says the food stock must be pre-positioned in country and at strategic border points before the snow arrives to meet these mounting needs. The UN agency also asked for $200 million for Afghanistan and $22 million for neighboring countries.
14 million people in Afghanistan today are struggling to put food on the table. The price of wheat has gone up by 25% in the last months, and therefore, with the economic situation, with the difficulty of earning income, and with the turmoil in which the country has been thrown, it's very difficult now to see the future for this population, a future which is food secure and a future without malnourished children.
Kenya electricity generating companies certified emission reduction credits available for sale have more than tripled. State-controlled Kenken, the biggest producer of electricity in Kenya, said in a statement on Wednesday that it has received an extra 2.04 million CARs worth $3.9 million. The company says the additional money from its 140 megawatts or Carrier 1 units, 4 and 5 geothermal power. Now, these adds to the more than 550,000 it had as of July. The statement says the credits are set to earn the company about 119 million Kenyan shillings. That's about $1.09 million. In South Africa, a wage agreement between the government and civil servants for the 2021-2022 fiscal year will cost about 20 billion rand. The National Treasury on Wednesday said in a presentation before a parliamentary committee that the 20 billion rand cost was above the compensation ceiling contained in this year's February budget. Trade unions initially demanded far more significant above-inflation increases. However, the government wanted to keep salaries flat to rein in a gaping budget deficit exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Tululope has more of the business stories.
This is Business on NC Continental Prime. I'm Tolulope Adelere Balogun. South Africa's economy was 11% bigger in 2020 than the previous estimate. Statistics South Africa has rebased its gross domestic product GDP survey with new data showing the higher figure. The country's statistics agency repositioned the economy amidst growing pressure that was worsened by the outbreak of the pandemic last year. This comes ahead of Nigeria's planned economic rebasing. According to some economists, most governments overhaul their GDP calculations every few years to reflect changes in output and consumption, bringing forward the base year against which they compare their latest output figures. It is noted that the exercise can lead to big one-off changes in estimates of the size of an economy. South Africa's national accounts will be benchmarked and rebased to the year 2015 from 2010 as part of the latest regular revision, a process carried out every 5 years. Statistics South Africa estimates that the size of the economy was 5.52 trillion rand, or the equivalent of $370 billion in 2020, up from 4.97 trillion rand previously. Still in Africa's most industrialized economy, mining giant Rio Tinto announced that it has commenced the process of restarting operations at Richards Bay Minerals, its major sand mining venture in the industrial town of KwaZulu-Natal. The restart of operations at the mine, the biggest single employer in the area, is expected to take some time. However, the company is yet to lift a force majeure declared on customer contracts in June after violence halted operations. In May, the mine's operations general manager, Nico Swartz, was killed in a hail of bullets. While no suspects have been arrested, the execution-style killing is believed to be linked to protests by local communities wanting greater financial benefits from the mining operations in Richards Bay. Moving now to the north, the governor of Libya's central bank has said that the OPEC member needs to boost oil production by about 40% of its current level to meet its spending needs and begin to recover from a decade-long war. In this report, Lekan Obanjo finds out if the largest oil-producing African country has the capability to increase production while facing decaying infrastructure and a seemingly unabating political crisis.
Libya, a North African country in the Maghreb region, has been enmeshed in political turmoil since the ousting and death of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. Since then, fortunes have dwindled despite sitting atop Africa's largest proven crude oil reserves. Its current output is 1.3 million barrels of oil per day, and if it hopes to improve earnings to meet expenditure, daily production must increase to 1.8 million barrels. However, the ability of the oil-producing state to boost its capacity is under question as it currently grapples with aging infrastructure, liquidity problems, long-delayed budget, and political tensions.
Between 1981 and 1982, where the oil revenue dropped from 1.7 billion to about 500 million barrels per day. This lasted for about a year, thereby dealing a huge blow in the country's revenue. In order to make any significant achievement in terms of infrastructural development, the political situation and tension in the country needs to be doused. For Libya to currently meet its monthly expenditure and reach a financial safety threshold, the government of the day needs to look inwards and look towards other resources.
Increasing oil production output would ensure revenue of $35 billion if oil averages $60 a barrel on the international market. This would keep Libya on the safe threshold and cover its spending and reconstruction plans.
Increase in oil production would definitely boost revenue, considering the global price of crude oil remains at $60 a barrel. However, clear policies or strict adherence to these policies need to be maintained in order for them to witness any significant development in infrastructure. Warring factions need to come to an agreement, possibly with international intervention, come to an agreement whereby they focus on their people and national development.
Amidst the palpable tension, the warring Eastern and Western parallel governments have been able to agree to a ceasefire and efforts to curb underlying fights on resource control, force disruptions, and shutting down of some oil production areas in order to boost revenue. Lekon Onabanjo reporting for News Central.
And now to the eastern parts of the continent. Kenya's external trade value hit 1.4 trillion Kenyan shillings in the first half of 2021. This is a 24.3% increase from 1.094 trillion Kenyan shillings in 2020. The rise in external trade is attributed to a rebound in global and macroeconomic conditions as the world reemerges from COVID-19 related disruptions. Imports into the country rose by 27.7% to hit 991.5 billion Kenyan shillings, while exports rose by 16.3% to hit 368.7 billion Kenyan shillings. Food and beverages accounted for 42.3% of Kenyan exports, while consumer goods accounted for 27.9%, and non-food industrial supplies were worth 25.8% of the value. During the review period, Uganda was Kenya's largest export destination, taking up goods worth 36.4 billion Kenyan shillings. This was followed by the Netherlands at 31.1 billion and the U.S. at 26.6 billion Kenyan shillings. Business News wraps up with the East African Community EAC member states and the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA, looking to introduce a digital payment system for informal cross-border trade within the COMESA bloc. Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda are already in the pilot phase. The digital payment system seeks to supersede similar systems adopted in the bloc to avoid disputes arising from overlapping systems. The platform further aims to integrate informal traders into formal markets through better access to digital finance systems. The Common Regional Scheme aims to facilitate domestic and cross-border trade to carry out transparent, affordable, and secured digital transactions. Other countries in the pilot phase are Ethiopia, Malawi, Zambia, Mauritius, and Egypt. And that's the business news we have for you at this time. You're watching NC Continental Prime on News Central. I'm Tolulokwe Adelaru Balogun. There's more news right after this.
Many thanks, Cholope. And again, for those top trending stories across social platforms on the continent, Seun Bankole has all the details.
For every buzz on the internet, there must be an attendance buzz, and we are here for all the buzz and back-to-back trends blowing hot on social media. Thank you for joining us on NC Trends. I am Seun Bankole. First, we begin with the news of an attack on Nigeria's foremost military university, the Nigeria Defense Academy, on Tuesday. Reports that bandits dressed in military camouflage successfully invaded, killed, and abducted officers from the permanent site of the institution in Kaduna State has sparked outrage online. More so, it has led to expressions of disappointment and has led people to ask, what is the hope of the common man? A few thoughts online now as regards the NDA attack. This one says, if bandits can successfully kill 2 naval officers and kidnap 2 majors in the barracks of the NDA, what are we, average Nigerians? Also, here's another comment that reads, this country is a huge joke. An entire defense academy was breached by bandits. They even killed an officer and then kidnapped 2 major military officers. Please, if you have a second option, activate it. Finally, this one reads, imagine, so now our military also needs protection in this country. This is laughable. We move now to the viral video showing an altercation between Nollywood actors Jimike and Uche Maduago. Backstory. So a few days ago, Uche, aka the Red Bra Guy, called out Jimike's expensive lifestyle. Questioning his source of wealth, Uche complained about his fellow actors' expensive lifestyle in Lagos and Abuja, and even said he imports his clothes from abroad, like the hush puppy of the movie industry. Now, Uche further threatened to use his Abuja connection to beg EFCC boss to invite Jimike for questioning, and said he would turn down any offer to be on the same movie location with Jimike, even if he's paid 10 million naira, until Jim reveals the source of his wealth. Now, a few days after they met physically, and Jimike, who recently premiered his new movie, Bad Comment, confronted Uche, who kept saying he will sue him and the EFCC will arrest him. Well, trust Jimike, it led to premium beating for Uche, and people are reacting online. Let's see a few posts. This one reads, it is so funny how he made a movie about this type of thing, that's Jimike, and he's actually bringing it to reality. All right, this one reads, the fact that Jimike actually tracked him down shows he's not to be messed with at all. All right, this one says, making erroneous comments on people's lifestyle without facts is a crime. Finally, there have been several types of challenges on TikTok, particularly since the days of COVID-19 lockdown. But the latest one is something I do not understand personally. Maybe you can make sense of it. I'm talking about the crate challenge, the latest game on social media where people climb stacks of milk crates and fake some scary-looking falls. The crate challenge hashtag has raked in more than 82 million views on TikTok, and the videos of the falls are pretty wild, especially watching people land directly on the hard plastic corners of the crates. Yes, the hashtag is now trending on Twitter as well. Let's see what people are saying. Amber Hamilton says, where are these people getting all of these crates? I don't want to participate in the challenge, but I could use some of these crates for storage. Okay, we have another comment that says, yeah, the milk crate challenge is dumb. Why would you want to do anything remotely risky that could potentially send you to the emergency room with broken bones, back injuries, and all sorts, where you have the COVID pandemic overrunning the emergency rooms? You're going to be waiting for a very long time, so just don't do it. Finally, we have this comment that says, what the crate challenge can cause off the top of my head. It can cause spinal cord compression with paralysis. It can cause ankle fracture, elbow fracture, any internal organ damage, as well as sudden death. So be careful out there. Now, let's have your opinion on any of the topics, NDA, Jimike, Red Bra Guy, or Crate Challenge, by dropping a comment on our Facebook or our Instagram. Also, remember to subscribe to News Central TV on YouTube for more trends. That's all we have for you tonight. See you again on NC Trends. I am Seun Bankole.
Well, the good thing is that pretty much a lot of African countries don't do milk in crates. So perhaps they'll be saved by that absence. Now, time for us to look at what's happening in the world of sports. And this time, I understand Onyo Barrow is starting off not with athletics or football, but golf.
Good evening, Sulai. Nice to have you here. Okay, let's go straight to the world of sport. Kenya is ready to host the World Corporate Golf Challenge that begins next week on Friday at the Royal Nairobi Golf Club. The event chairman, John Katarai, has said The competition is the biggest World Corporate Golf Challenge, attracting over 250 participants and selecting a team that will represent Kenya in the World Finals in Portugal in the early November. The winners in the qualifying event will receive an all-expense-paid trip to the finals, where they will face countries including Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Argentina, Brazil, Canada, China, USA, India, Japan, Colombia, Malaysia, Australia, and Mexico. Now, Kenya's Emmanuel Korir and Ferguson Rotich are set to star in the men's 800 meters at the Diamond League meeting in Lausanne, and also will bring together a golden array of Olympic champions on that day. Korir won gold at the Olympic Games earlier this month, with Rotich taking silver, and the pair will have 5 of other top 7 finishers from the Tokyo as the company for the Games. Now, a total of 19 Olympic gold medalists have signed up for the meeting, the ninth leg of the Diamond League. Among them is Jamaican sprint queen Ellen Thompson-Herah. Federation of International Football Association President Jan Infantino has called on the Premier League, La Liga and other national federations to show solidarity in light of the player release dispute for the upcoming World Cup qualifiers. Infantino's call on Wednesday comes after the English top-flight side on Tuesday said it will stop individuals from featuring for the countries in the UK government's red list, meaning a quarantine on return from September matches. Now, in a statement, the FIFA boss says he has suggested that an approach similar to what was adopted by the UK for the final stages of the Euro 2020 should be implemented for the upcoming international matches. Now, 6-time tennis champion Serena Williams has become the latest high-profile player to pull out of next week's US Open after defending men's champion Dominic Thiem, Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal pulled out earlier. In a post on social media, the 39-year-old American says she needed time to allow her body heal completely from a torn hamstring. Now, Serena Williams suffered the injury during her first-round exit at Wimbledon in June, when she was forced to retire against Belarusian Alexandra Sasnovich. Now, she is chasing a record-equaling 24th Grand Slam title. In the AfroBasket, Cameroon national team at the FIBA AfroBasket 2021 has been hit by COVID-19 and consequently lost the game to South Sudan by a forfeiture. Cameroon reportedly returned 5 positive COVID-19 tests. Following the COVID-19 protocol from FIBA official national team and club competitions, FIBA decided that today's game between Cameroon and South Sudan for Group D of the ongoing FIBA AfroBasket 2021 at Kigali, Rwanda, will not take place, with the health and safety of players, coaches and officials being primary consideration for FIBA. Cameroon lost the game par forfeit at the end of the day, as the game is awarded to South Sudan and the score 20-0. Cameroon team will receive a 0 classification points due to this forfeiture. Cameroon is in the same group as Uganda, and it remains to be seen whether they will forfeit their game against the Silverbacks that is scheduled for Friday. Now, finally in sport, the Nigerian men's basketball team. And there you have it, sport update at this time. I am Onyechi Obaru. Back to you, Sulai, for the rest of the news bulletin.
Well, thanks, Onyechi. Now, time for us to look at weather. As the world grapples with the effect of climate change, especially in food security, environmentalists advocate immediate response to the global threat before its effect becomes irreversible. More on News Central by Niyi Omoni on that.
As a result of increasing global warming that had now reached 1.2 degrees centigrade, climate change was now approaching catastrophic proportions, and it was undisputably caused by human activity.
Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change projects that under the worst-case climate change scenario, a reduction in mean yield of 13% is expected in West and Central Africa, 11% in North Africa, and 8% in East and Southern Africa. Meaning, aside poverty, climate, lack of investment in agriculture, and unstable markets, global warming also has devastating effect on crop production and food security. In the drought-prone sub-Saharan African countries, the number of undernourished people has increased by 45.6% since 2012 due to climate change. In Madagascar, for instance, tens of thousands of people are already suffering catastrophic levels of hunger and food insecurity after 4 years without rain.
We have had 5 years of consecutive drought in this area. People are losing their livelihoods, and we are really seeing them in a desperation moment. And this, in fact, is people who have contributed nothing to climate change. This is a place in the world where there is no industries, no contamination, no pollution. These people are living with the basic things.
With the post-pandemic recovery and insecurity the world is already battling with, there is urgent need to tackle climate change as it becomes an increasing threat.
Reality is that it is an emergency. There's no doubt about it. However, we are not treating it as an emergency, possibly because it's a little bit gradual in its process of development.
Let us start speaking about it at national level, at the state level, and at local government level, even at the grassroots. Let us start discussing ways by which we can curb this menace by changing our ways. Let us move away from activities that involves burning of fossil fuels.
Climate change is widespread, rapid, and intensifying, with many more changes, some which may be irreversible, expected in years to come. Emphases have been made on sustained reductions in emissions of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases to limit climate change. Ni Omoni, reporting for News Central.
Well, some Nigerians have been warned to expect a flash flood and go around the continent. You'll be expecting to see whether you see a bucket of rainfall or a mug of rainbows. Our weather desk has all the details. To be plenty of sunshine across the continent for tomorrow. That's it on the news for this hour, but before we go, let's take another look at some of the big stories. A 24-hour curfew has been declared in Nigeria's north-central state of Plateau after an attack left several dead and many wounded. 6 persons have been killed during a shootout near the French embassy in Tanzania's commercial hub, Dar es Salaam. We told you that an outbreak of the highly contagious H5N1 avian flu has been confirmed in 2 districts in the Benin Republic. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV. You can also download our mobile app on the App Store and Play Store. You can also watch the News Central live on Star Times, Channel 274, Avio TV Channel 23, Vision 247, Free TV, as well as YouTube. I'm Sulaiman. Many thanks for watching.